Good morning. I hereby call to order the fourth meeting of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for the year 2023. I want to welcome everyone that's here and those that are watching us on our live stream. And now we ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As always, we remind you at today's meeting, which is open to the public, the Commission will act on various matters. Also, a reminder that there's no opportunity for the public to address the Commission at these public meetings. The public meeting motions, statements, and video will be available on the Commission's website later today. So the first matter on this morning's agenda is the consideration of the minutes for the meeting of February 9th, 2023, and I will call upon Commissioner Zerfis, who is the editor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have reviewed the minutes of the February 9, 2023 public meeting, and I move that they be approved as submitted.
You have heard the motion for the approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any further edits or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. The minutes are approved 5-0. And now we will turn it over to our Secretary of the Commission, Rosemary Chiavetta, who will lead us through this morning's agenda.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Your various bureaus and offices have prepared the following agenda for your consideration. Therefore, let us begin on page 1 with the recommendation of Director Bechtel and the Bureau of Consumer Services that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the Joint Proposed Universal Service and Energy Conservation Plan for the First Energy Companies.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning to page 2, and matters presented by Director Sophie and the Office of Special Assistance. It is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the formal complaint of Adam Turchek versus the Duquesne Light Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved. I will be second.
Is there a second? I heard Commissioner Zerfis, and I also heard Commissioner Unora.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Zerfis, second by Commissioner Unora. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning to page 3, and matters presented by Director Diskin and the Bureau of Technical Utility Services. It is recommended that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 3, beginning with the review of Aqua Pennsylvania Wastewater's long-term infrastructure improvement plan, and continuing the omnibus to include both items on page 4, and to include the first 2 items on page 5, ending the omnibus motion with the letter of notification filed by the West Penn Power Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman DeFrank, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Continuing at the bottom of page 5, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed order regarding the tariff supplement filed by the Pennsylvania American Water Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Unora, second by Commissioner Zerfis. Any discussion?
Chairman, I do have a motion on this matter.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. I'd ask that my motion be entered to the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission for consideration and disposition is Pennsylvania American Water Company Supplement Number 41 to Tariff Water PA PUC Number 5. Tariff supplement number 41 properly reflects $0 rate for Pennsylvania American's Valley District fire protection customers through November 18th of 2023. In its last tariff supplement, PA American included higher rates for these customers by mistake. I agree with the staff recommendation that supplement number 41 should be permitted to become effective on the proposed March 31, 2023 effective date. Instead of charging incorrect higher rates for Valley District fire protection customers, PA American has waived the relevant charges set forth in last tariff supplement during the Commission's review of supplement number 41. PA American will not seek to recover the waived charges from other customers. The Office of Consumer Advocate requested that the Commission consider referring PA American's decision to waive rates in this instance to the Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement. While the Commission stresses the importance of compliance with the requirement to adhere to the approved supplements in accordance with Section 1303 of the Public Utility Code, having reviewed this matter, I do not believe a referral to the Bureau of Investigation Enforcement is appropriate. The filing before us today, Supplement 41, simply corrects a clerical error. Supplement 41 will not impact the rates paid by PA American's other customers. PA American's decision to waive charges in this instance will not impact the rates paid by other customers. If the OCA or other parties have further concerns about the company's decision to waive rates for Valley District fire protection customers, then those concerns may be raised in a formal complaint. Therefore, I move that the Bureau of Technical Utility Service prepare an order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
You have heard the motion of Commissioner Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. On the matter as amended, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? On the matter as amended, it passes 5-0.
Turning to page 6, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the proposed order regarding the tariff supplement filed by the Pennsylvania American Water Company's wastewater division.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman DeFrank, second by Commissioner Yunora. Any discussion?
No, it was,
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You know, I said surface. I meant surface. I'm sorry. Apologize. Second was my Commissioner Surface. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning to page 7, and matters presented by Chief Counsel Hicks and the Law Bureau, it is recommended that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 7, beginning with the implementation order under the Gas and Hazardous Liquids Pipeline Act 127 and the petition for reconsideration filed by the Pennsylvania Independent Oil and Gas Association, and ending the omnibus on page 8. With the tentative order canceling the certificates of public convenience of certain telecommunications utilities.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Yunora, second by Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning to page 9, and matters presented by Chief Administrative Law Judge Rainey and the Office of Administrative Law Judge. It is recommended that the Commission adopt the initial decision of ALJ DeVoe in the formal complaint of Hope Curry versus the Pennsylvania Electric Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman, second by the loudest person on my right, Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Continuing at the bottom of page 9, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the initial decision of ALJ Haas in the formal complaint of Jennifer Dlugosh versus UGI Utilities Electric Division.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I ask that we revisit the Hope Curry versus Penelec Electric Company.
So there's a motion to reconsider the vote or reconsider the matter on this case. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman DeFrank, second by Commissioner Coleman. I'm assuming there's no discussion. All those in favor of reconsideration, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion to reconsider passes, brings the case back up to us. We already had a motion to consider it and a second.
Madam
Is there
Chair?
any discussion?
I have a statement on the
Do
matter.
you have a
You
statement?
threw me off for talking about how loud I was. I apologize for that. On January 4th, 2023, the Office of Administrative Law Judge issued the initial decision of Administrative Law Judge Emily I. DeVoe in this matter. The initial decision dismisses the complaint filed by Hope Curry against the Pennsylvania Electric Company because Ms. Curry failed to appear for the hearing and prove that the Commission should grant her a further payment arrangement. The decision also bars Ms. Curry from filing any further formal or informal complaints regarding her electric utility balance until she pays the balance in full. At the time the decision was issued, Ms. Curry's arrearage balance exceeded $32,000. The deposition in this instant proceeding is prudent. At the same time, however, this case represents an opportunity to highlight the delicate balance between terminating customers and ensuring that arrearage balances do not become exorbitant. This is especially timely in the light of the General Assembly's examination of Chapter 14 of the Public Utility Code before it needs to be reauthorized at the end of 2024. The existing balance of $32,000 is one of the highest outstanding balances owed by a residential customer this Commission has seen in recent years. As noted in the decision, a public utility is entitled to receive payment for service it provides. Otherwise, a customer's unpaid bills are included in the utility's uncollectible expenses and ultimately paid by other utility customers. Furthermore, Chapter 14 of the Public Utility Code reminds utilities that they have an affirmative responsibility to attempt to collect payment on an overdue account and must report to the Commission annually residential customer accounts which accumulate $10,000 or more in arrearages. The arrearage at issue in this case is reportable pursuant to Section 1410 of the Public Utility Code. A recent report issued by the Commission's Bureau of Consumer Services details that the number of accounts exceeding $10,000 in arrearages has nearly tripled for residential electric customers from 2019 to 2021. Of course, during part of this time, utilities were prohibited from terminating customers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of the termination moratorium, more exorbitant balances may be coming, and we must be prepared. The record in this proceeding demonstrates that Ms. Curry received her first commission order payment arrangement in 2013 for a balance that already exceeded $17,000. Therefore, it was clear that Ms. Curry was payment troubled for at least 10 years. Even the most accommodative payment arrangement the Commission can provide under Chapter 14 could be reasonably perceived as insurmountable. It is my sincere hope that we do not see any other cases with arrearages of this magnitude. Such a situation is untenable. While the record in this case details the complexities associated with these types of situations, including multiple company-issued payment arrangements, multiple commission-issued payment arrangements, multiple medical certificates, multiple formal and informal complaints, and multiple commission hearings, it is clear that outstanding balances at levels as high as occurred in this case must be avoided. Nonetheless, it is difficult to balance the duties of utilities to ensure consumers access to safe and reliable utility service at just and reasonable rates while avoiding such high outstanding balances. I highlight this case for those currently looking at the reauthorization of Chapter 14 as an example of an area where more guidance could be provided. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any further discussion?
Chairman, I just have a couple of brief comments on the matter.
Commissioner Coleman.
First of all, I want to associate myself with Vice Chairman DeFrank's statement on this matter. The these are the worst of the worst cases that come before this commission, and maybe this can be a turning point as we come out of a winter moratorium and an opportunity to address these kinds of high arrearages. I think there's a little bit of ownership in this for all of us. I think, as the Vice Chairman has stated, that Ms. Curry has been barred from filing any other complaints, either informal or formal, with this commission, and I think that probably speaks for itself. I think that there may have been some opportunities here for First Energy to address this high balance before it got to this point. And I think that as a result of what we have done with a COVID moratorium that was over an extended period of time and bookended at either end with winter moratoriums that allowed for this to continue. I suspect that this is going to be the first of many that we're going to see, and this was a concern that I had a number of months ago when we talked about our COVID moratorium, and hopefully, again, that today this will be a clear message to the regulated community that the Commission would sure like to see these matters addressed in a timely manner. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Now continuing at the bottom of page 9, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the initial decision of ALJ Haas in the formal complaint of Jennifer Dlugosch versus UGI Utilities Electric Division.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman DeFrank, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning to page 10, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the initial decision of ALJs Hoyer and DeVoe regarding the application of the American Broadband and Telecommunications Company.
Is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Yonora, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? I do have a joint motion on behalf of myself and Commissioner Zerfus to offer, so I'm going to ask Vice Chairman DeFrank to preside.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I recognize you for your motion.
Thank you very much. I ask that my motion, or our motion, excuse me, be spread upon the record in its entirety, and I'm going to read it in its entirety too. So. Before the Commission today is the initial decision granting American Broadband and Telecommunications Company, or ABT, petition for leave to withdraw its application for approval of pro forma transfer of control, nunc-pro-tunc, which is a petition to withdraw. The petition to withdraw was filed by ABT after a protest was filed by the Office of Consumer Advocate to ABT's application for approval of pro forma transfer of control, nunc-pro-tunc. In its protest, the OCA raised substantial concerns about ABT's technical and financial fitness. One of the specific concerns raised by the OCA regarding ABT's fitness concerned the fact that ABT had entered into a settlement agreement with the Federal Communications Commission regarding its improper delivery of Lifeline service. We share the OCA's concerns with ABT's actions, including the company's noncompliance with our regulations governing transfers of control. Due to ABT's failure to seek approval for the transfer from the Commission under Chapter 63 of the Public Utility Code, ABT sought nunc-pro-tunc relief from the Commission regarding a transfer of control it had entered into from financing agreements. We are concerned that allowing certificated public utility providers to avoid compliance with our streamlined transfer of control regulations, which are available only to certificated providers of communications services in the Commonwealth, if allowed to become common practice, will ultimately affect Consumer Services. We agree with the decision to grant ABT's unopposed petition to withdraw because it is in the public interest. However, granting the petition to withdraw does not address ABT's failure to comply with our regulations. It is necessary to emphasize the importance of compliance with our streamlined transfer of control regulations. Since the initial decision does not ultimately obviate or cure ABT's noncompliance with Chapter 63 of the regulations and Chapter 11 of the Public Utility Code, and given the OCA's protest and the facts of this case, this matter should be referred to the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement for further action as deemed necessary and appropriate. Therefore, we move that 1, the initial decision of the administrative law judges Mark A. Hoyer and Emily I. DeVoe will be modified consistent with this motion. 2, the Office of Special Assistance shall prepare an opinion order consistent with this motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've heard the motion from the chairman. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Chairman Dutrell, second by Commissioner Yanora. On the motion, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? The motion passes by a vote of 5-0. On the matter as amended, is there an objection to taking the previous roll call? Seeing none, the matter passes as amended by the motion by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, that concludes the regular agenda, turning now to the carry-in. On page 1 of the carry-in agenda, there is the joint motion by Vice Chairman DeFrank and Commissioner Zerfus to review the universal service programs of all jurisdictional fixed utilities.
I recognize either Vice Chairman DeFrank or Commissioner Zerfus, not sure.
It'll be me.
Vice Chairman DeFrank.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I offer the following motion on behalf of myself and Commissioner Zerfus. We ask that the motion be placed on the record as if I read it in its entirety. It is in the public interest to ensure that all Pennsylvanians have access to safe and reliable utility services. It is important that the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission review its universal service policies from time to time. This includes, among other things, all jurisdictional fixed utilities universal service programs, including customer assistance programs. Therefore, we propose issuance of a secretarial letter to seek comments regarding how the Commission's regulations, policies, and procedures could be revised with a particular focus on increasing program coordination among all utilities, streamlining the eligibility and enrollment process, and reducing the number of otherwise eligible consumers from losing low-income benefits due to the verification or re-enrollment process. A review of the comments may help inform our consideration of improvements to existing programs, including improvements that may be considered in the context of future rate-making proceedings. By way of background, the Commission and various stakeholders began addressing low-income policies and practices for Pennsylvania utilities as early as the 1980s. Subsequent state legislation involving electric, natural gas, and telecommunication industries in Chapters 22, 28, and 30 of the Public Utility Code codify the importance of universal service. Subsequently, the Commission has, among other things, established and amended the CAP policy statement, with the most recent amendment happening in 2019. At the same time, low-income programs for Pennsylvania's electric distribution companies and natural gas distribution companies have been approved by the Commission pursuant to respective restructuring acts. Pennsylvania's incumbent local exchange telecommunication companies have developed low-income assistance programs as well. Recently, some jurisdictional water utilities have voluntarily implemented programs to assist their low-income customers. The history of the efforts of this Commission, jurisdictional utilities, low-income advocates, and others in increasing the provision of utility service to low-income Pennsylvanians is well documented. A review of the current status of universal service program design at this time is again prudent to consider further improvements to the existing programs. We are interested in reviewing areas where jurisdictional fixed utilities universal service programs may be improved. The goal of these improvement considerations is to make enrollment and retainment in universal service as efficient as possible for the consumer and the utility while maintaining proper diligence and verification for eligibility. Again, Our goal is to make enrollment and retainment in these programs as efficient as possible. This could include, but may not be limited to, using one enrollment application to cover all of a consumer's utilities to eliminate, for example, the need for a consumer to provide the same basic information to each utility serving that particular consumer. This can make enrollment in multiple programs more convenient for consumers and streamline the intake process for each utility. We seek consideration of a design whereby, among other things, if a consumer is already enrolled or is enrolling in one utility program, the consumer would meet eligibility for universal enrollment in a consumer's other utilities programs without having to go through a separate application process for each utility. The goal would be to make enrollment in each utilities program streamlined by having one intake that is then used to enroll the consumer in each utility's universal service program, including usage reduction programs. Additionally, another topic we propose for consideration to streamline the eligibility process is to permit a consumer to use a low-income assistance determination from another government agency that verified the applicant's household income to establish eligibility for the universal enrollment in the consumer's utilities assistance programs. To these ends, we move that the issuance of a secretarial letter requesting comments from all interested parties on the following topics, among other things. What regulatory barriers are in place that would prevent utilities from having one utility do intake and then having that information provided to other utilities to provide service to other consumers for the purpose of universal service and cap enrollment? What regulatory barriers or other obstacles exist if an outside provider does the intake on behalf of multiple utilities serving the consumer, and what solutions exist to overcome any barriers? How can consumer consent be built into intake process that permits the utility doing the intake to provide the enrollment information to other utilities serving the consumer? Is an automatic enrollment program feasible, or any mechanism through which an electronic exchange of information between a utility and a state social service agency confirms the eligibility of public benefits, whether or not the information is expressly authorized by the household? Should CAP programs be administered statewide across all utility service territories rather than on a utility-by-utility basis? What changes would be required to EDC's and NGDC's existing Commission-approved universal service and energy conservation programs to incorporate improvements, and could changes be addressed to streamline that process? What additional consumer education and outreach could be undertaken to make more low-income consumers aware of the benefits that may be available to them? What additions or changes to existing CAP policy statements should be made to increase eligibility, enrollment, or maintenance of CAP benefits? Should the CAP policy statement be amended to include jurisdictional water public utilities? Therefore, we move that a secretarial letter be issued and served on all jurisdictional fixed utilities that directs that comments be filed within 60 days of publication in the Pennsylvania Bulletin regarding increasing universal service program coordination among all fixed public utilities, streamlining the eligibility and enrollment process for universal service programs, and reducing the number of otherwise eligible consumers from losing low-income benefits due to the verification re-enrollment process as discussed above. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You have heard the joint motion of Vice Chairman DeFrank and Commissioner Zurfis. Is there a second? I will second it. On the motion, is there any discussion?
Chairman, I do have some comments of my own and some that are part of a joint statement with Commissioner Yonora.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. For many of you that have been in the room over the years, you probably got this sense of deja vu that it wasn't long ago that we were here entertaining revisions to universal service plans. And here we are again today entertaining the same. Many of you, as well as many of us, are probably exhausted with that process and the level of effort and the expense and the time that's taken to go through those changes that we made to universal service plans. And we're not done. In fact, that was the first item on the agenda this morning as we are approving First Energy's USEP from 2024 to 2028, and there are still more to come before us. I applaud the effort here this morning to find efficiencies in a process, but it does cause me pause that we are not through our last round of revisions to universal service plans. And those of you who have been with us over the years, you may recall one of the primary concerns that I had at the last round of universal service plan considerations was the cost associated with adjustments and changes that we make to universal service plans. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the joint statement with Commissioner Yonora, but this is a very delicate balance. And there are very valid interests on both sides of this equation. And it is, in fact, in my mind, just that. It's a delicate balance in an equation that balances the interest of all customer classes, not just those who are unable to pay. I'm also reminded that there is a strong majority, in fact, more than 85% of low-income customers that pay their utility bills on a regular basis and do not make use of universal service plans. So I'm concerned deeply about that group, not as much about myself and my ability to pay more in a universal service plan, but those who struggle with their personal finance on a regular basis. And here we are again this morning, initiating another process that is going to add additional cost to those very rate classes and those that struggle. And I worry that there's a breaking point for those folks in those particular rate classes. So this morning, Commissioner Yonora and I do have a joint statement, and I'm going to ask that that be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before us today is the joint C motion of Vice Chairman DeFrank and Commissioner Zerfas requesting comments, reviews, potential revisions to the Commission's universal service policies for electric distribution companies, natural gas distribution companies, jurisdictional water utilities, and incumbent local exchange telecommunication companies. As noted in the joint motion, the Commission recently completed a 2-year comprehensive review of universal service policies, practices, procedures, and impacts. This review resulted in amendments to the Customer Assistance Program policy statement effective March 21st, 2020. The Commission also implemented at that time a pilot universal service and energy conservation program filing schedule, making proposed USAPs effective for at least 5 years. We do not support another review of universal service policies and programs at this time. We are not persuaded that the joint C motion will cover new ground, different from the recent universal service proceedings, relevant water proceedings, or initiatives by the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services in this area. We do not support asking jurisdictional fixed utilities to file additional comments in response to questions that are premature, duplicative, or overly broad. In fact, I am reminded of one of our former colleagues that said, we've heard enough on universal service in our last proceeding. And I think there's still a lot more in those comments that will be duplicative here as well. It is not prudent to direct limited resources to repeat tasks so recently completed or nearly completed. The EDCs and NGDCs have been submitted carefully crafted universal service plans in response to the amended CAP policy statement. The Commission's Bureau of Consumer Services has been working diligently to review these filings. The Commission is about midway through its schedule for reviewing and approving these plans. The EDCs and NGDCs should concentrate their efforts on designing and implementing these new universal service plans while stakeholders and the Commission should concentrate on reviewing and evaluating the same. In addition to the universal service plans, the Commission has an ongoing rulemaking regarding the Commission's regulations for low-income usage reduction programs, LIRP. The Commission's received reply comments on updating LIRP regulations back in 2017. The proceeding was then deferred pending amendment to the CAP policy statement. Commission, utility, and stakeholder resources should be refocused to the LIER proceeding. With respect to jurisdictional water utilities, the major water utilities have recently received approval for or are in the process of seeking approval for ratepayer-funded low-income programs similar to the EDC and the NGDC Universal Service Programs. Again, we should allow these programs to be fully implemented and evaluated before shifting the focus to further changes. On the question of sharing customer information, this issue is currently being addressed by DHS. We know from the recent meeting of the LIHEAP Advisory Committee that DHS plans to implement data sharing of household information to utilities with customer consent, beginning with the 23-24 LIHEAP season. We are also concerned that the joint motion does not solicit any input on universal service cost, as I had mentioned earlier. In the universal service and relevant water proceedings, affordability issues and the need for cost control have been repeatedly raised by the Office of Consumer Advocate. We unreservedly acknowledge the need for utilities to assist payment-troubled customers in Pennsylvania. At the same time, like the OCA, we must recognize that the burden to pay for these programs falls on residential customers. In 2021, a total of $457 million was spent on USEFs for the energy utilities, a $95 million increase from the 2020's spending of $362 million. We are concerned about the increasing burden USEP places on ALICE, utility customers of our state. Now, the United Way defines ALICE as individuals of households as asset-limited, income-constrained employed. It provides an example of cashiers, waiters, child care providers, and other members of the essential workforce, many of the group that I'm referring to that I'm deeply concerned about in paying their bills. These families struggle to earn enough to make ends meet and stay afloat, and through that effort maintain an income just above the federal poverty level. And cutting them off as such, they do not qualify for payment assistance. The United Way points out that this type of hardship is pervasive and disproportionately affects families of color and single parents. It also notes that those under 25 and over 65 of age are more likely to be considered ALICE customers. The proposed Joint C motion champions the unlimited expansion of universal service programs without consideration of costs of these programs placed on hardworking yet struggling families. Customer assistance programs were originally implemented in the face of increasing uncollectible cost and were intended to benefit all customer classes. Let me state that one more time. I think that is an important part in the consideration here this morning. Customer assistance programs were initially implemented in the face of increasing uncollectible cost and were intended to benefit all customer classes. This is the delicate balance that I'm referring to. Low income, on one hand, the low income payment troubled customers receive a lower bill. And the concept here is that the payment of which would lower the utilities uncollectible and in return a stable, if not lower rates for all customer classes. We should not lose sight of this original purpose. In the same vein, the General Assembly will soon begin a review of Chapter 14 of the Public Utility Code. Chapter 14 was also implemented to reduce utilities' uncollectible accounts. Chapter 14 was also, the Commission should also be cautious in usurping policy prerogatives that belong to the elected legislative and executive branch officials. The goal of the Commission is to balance the needs of all ratepayers. The Commission should administer universal service programs in a way that assists low-income, payment-troubled customers while paying close attention to the financial impact these programs may have on residential customers as a whole. We cannot agree to a review and possible expansion of these programs that does not consider the needs of Pennsylvania families that are working essential, and struggling. For these reasons, we will be dissenting on the joint C motion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman, and with your joint statement of Commissioner Yonora. Any further discussion?
Madam Chairman?
Vice Chairman DeFrank.
Thank you. Just a quick response to my colleagues' comments there. We are not seeking the, quote, unlimited expansion of low-income programs. In fact, it's the opposite. We seek efficiencies in those programs. That is why we are trying to make those dollars go as far as possible. As we talked earlier in this meeting, one of the matters talked about a high balance. We are, as Commissioner Coleman talked about in his comments on that matter, we are likely on the front end of a wave of seeing high balances. As I said in my statements, we had a tripled 300% increase in high balances in a 2-year period. The fact that there are open proceedings here, there are, but we hopefully hope to move those proceedings forward because we're seeing that those programs, these high balances, they have not worked in trying to curb those balances. So with that, I want to point out that there's nothing in this motion that increases costs. Again, it's asking for information as to how we can maximize the efficiency of these programs. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman DeFrank. Any further discussion on the joint motion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Zerfus.
Madam Chair, just a couple comments, please. On focus, I would say that while we have undertaken comprehensive reviews of universal service programs in the past, this is actually a narrow focus. It's not as, super broad or duplicative as had mentioned. We are now conducting a thorough review of specific issues like streamlining the eligibility and enrollment process for universal service programs and reducing the number of otherwise eligible customers from losing program benefits. Again, super narrow focus, some issues that have not been thoroughly vetted in previous conversations. I would say that now is an appropriate time to engage in an informed review of improvements to these programs, since some of the conversations that have already taken place in the past, and we have learned a lot in the past few years. On cost is always a valid consideration. In fact, we're statutorily required to consider cost. This motion isn't the appropriate place to discuss cost. We're not making any decisions or even express considerations on the cost at this time. It's just an inquiry and request for comments from our vested partners in considering potential improvements and efficiencies to the programs. Costs related to universal service programs, I would remind folks, are properly considered in the context of a utilities request for a rate increase or as part of the utilities universal service rider. On process, I would say that having about 20 years experience in the legislative and executive branches, I'm very sensitive to the roles that we all play in policy making or decision making or these kinds of conversations. This is just an informative process. It's information gathering, it's data collection that can help inform policymakers as they go about reauthorizing Chapter 14. So I appreciate concerns about struggling families hovering at or above the poverty level. I'm hoping we can channel this passion together and work together and in concert with the legislature to have a broader conversation or a policy discussion on how to help our vulnerable populations. Again, I would say that this motion really it's about efficiency. It's not about the cost necessarily, although that conversation will come. But I encourage all of our vested partners to participate and to comment, and we can all work together as we go forward in discussing these new issues on this matter. Thank you.
Any further comments or discussion on the joint motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
The motion passes 3-2, noting the dissent of Commissioner Coleman and Yonora.
Continuing on page 1 of the carry-in, it should be noted that the C motion of Commissioner Yenora, ensuring that Pennsylvania water and wastewater customers have access to supplemental low-income household water assistance program funding, has been withdrawn.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I'm withdrawing my C motion because, as Commissioner Zerfus will explain in our joint statement, my concerns with Pennsylvania's request for reallocated low-income household water associates program, or LIWAP, funds have been addressed. I applaud Governor Shapiro's administration for this leadership effort and would offer the March 15th announcement of the Department of Human Services regarding this program into the record. I will also continue to emphasize my support for the Pennsylvania's receipt of reallocated LIWAP funding to benefit our low-income water and wastewater customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yenora. Any further comments on the withdrawal of this C motion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Zerfus.
Madam Chair, just to echo some of the comments from Commissioner Yenora, he and I want to express our excitement about the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services announcement yesterday that Pennsylvania intends to operate a second round of low-income household water assistance program funding. The Commonwealth is in an excellent position to potentially receive millions of additional dollars in federal funding. This would be during the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reallocation process. We continue to support Pennsylvania's receipt of these additional funds to assist the thousands of low-income Pennsylvanians who may need help paying their water and wastewater bills. I personally want to thank Commissioner Yenora for his advocacy on these issues. And again, we want to thank Governor Shapiro and his administration for their leadership in these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zerfus. If there's no other discussion, if no other business before us on the commission.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, that concludes all agenda items for consideration today.
I just want to give a shout out to Commissioner Yenora on this matter. I guess if this were a C motion that were come before us, I would concur in result only. I think it's great that we got to an end result here. This is a huge deal. And Pennsylvania has done a great job in expending the resources that were allocated to us, and it's through the efforts of Commissioner Yenora and Commissioner Zerfus that has brought this to a higher attention, and I think we have a great result here. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, is there any other business to come before us?
No, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Before we close out today's agenda, though, I do want to recognize Commissioner Yenora for a statement on the upcoming Fix a Leak Week campaign. Commissioner
Thank you, Madam
Yenora.
Chair. Next week, beginning March 20th, is a National Fix a Leak Week, when we will be highlighted the importance of safe drinking water, along with the role of water efficiency and conservation efforts. As co-vice chairman of the NARUC Committee on Water, I feel it is important to increase our awareness and understanding on how big of a role water plays in supporting our communities. Conserving water starts in the home. The average household leaks can account for nearly 10,000 gallons of water wasted every year. 10% of our homes have leaks that waste 90 gallons of water per day. We encourage the consumers to check the PUC website and social media channels during the coming week for tips and information about simple things they can do to identify these fix-a-leaks around the house. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yenora. Now, also, before we leave, these are always the challenging and tough ones for us as commissioners, as we have great staff here at the commission, and when they take the opportunity to retire, even though we acknowledge that they are entitled to retire, we always are concerned about it, and we'll miss them dearly as part of the PUC family. I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge two of our employees that will be retiring from state government service. The first one is Larry Treaster. Larry has been with the Commonwealth for 34 years and been employed with the commission since September of 1989. Larry joined the Bureau of Audits as an auditor trainee and has been serving in his current role on team lead since 2001. He has worked under 7 chairmen, 6 bureau directors, 6 managers, 10 supervisors, and has even worked in 3 different office buildings during his time with the commission. I think that's a record, Larry. In addition to his regular duties, Larry has served as the audit's representative on the Small Water Company Task Force for several years and has provided support on countless projects. He is a huge source of institutional memory and can explain why we just do about everything we do in the Bureau of Audits. During his time with the Bureau, Larry has been instrumental in training the financial audit staff and has played a crucial role in mentoring new auditors. During his time in audits, Larry has pretty much seen it all: gutting of the TMI-2 cooling towers, looking at grinding pumps in sewer lines, inspecting numerous coal plants, some of which don't exist anymore, and has even worked on-site at an unheated central office of telephone company in the middle of February. Good for you, Larry. I don't know if I would have done all that. On a personal note, Larry and his wife Laura love to travel to his beachside home almost every weekend in the summer. He just brought a boat and plans to use it extensively in his newfound free time. He's very proud of his 2 children, Garrett and Caitlin. Garrett is currently serving as a special ops officer in the United States Air Force, and Caitlin specializes in computer app development and improvement. Larry is an avid walker and has been a central part of the audit crew on daily walks. He is hard to keep up with, sometimes with his fast pace and long strides. Even after 34 years, he is still the fastest worker in all of audits. Larry is one of the Bureau's true extroverts, loves conversation, and is always welcoming to everyone he meets. His jovial attitude and pleasant personality will greatly be missed. As he prepares to turn the page on this chapter, we wish him well in all that he does in his future endeavors, and we ask Larry to please stand so we can recognize him and thank him for his service here at the Commission. Now, Larry, I'm going to give you this opportunity. If you would like to say a few words, you can go to the microphone where our secretary stands. It's truly up to you. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for your service to the Commonwealth. We know you have received our special gift, so thank you very much. Our second employee that is retiring is our Chief Counsel, Bernardo Rick Hicks, who has served as our Chief Counsel for the Law Bureau for the past 3.5 years. As most of you know, these past few years have been some of the most unusual times for the Commission, and Rick has started here just a few months before the start of the pandemic. He and the Law Bureau provided essential legal services in all of our orders concerning matters related to the pandemic. And despite some challenges, as our Chief Counsel, Rick managed our Law Bureau much like a law firm operating within the Commission. He came to the Commission with more than 30 years of legal service, including nearly 10 years of service as an attorney and manager in the PA Attorney General's office. He also served as an officer in a CLEC and in law firms as private counsel for utilities, consumers, government officials, colleges and universities, churches, and government officials. Rick and the Law Bureau have been our front line for enforcing the requirements of our Public Utility Code and defending the decisions of the Commission in both state and federal courts and agencies. One of the hallmarks of his service at the Commission has been his talent and ability as a manager and trial practice instructor. Some of you know that during his tenure, Rick conducted mock trials for every oral argument conducted by the Law Bureau, with attorneys serving as judges, intervening attorneys actively participating, and video recordings of attorney performances. In each of the years that he has been with us, the Law Bureau has been actively litigating around 50 cases per year. And in this past year, 2022, out of the 16 cases resulted in final court orders, the Law Bureau received 15 positive results. That is because of the efforts of our chief counsel. We thank him so much. The commission is very proud of the contributions made by Rick in the short time that he has been with us. And while I understand he's retiring from state service, somehow I believe that we will see him again in some other capacity. So on behalf of myself and my fellow colleagues, we want to thank Rick for his service to not only the commission, but his service to the Commonwealth as well. And Rick, we please ask that you stand to be recognized. Now, as I offered Larry, I will also offer you an opportunity to say a few words. We know you're not bashful, so. Do you want to take the microphone of?
Not really, unless anybody can hear me. Is there anyone who can?
Remember, we are streaming, so.
Commissioners, to my colleagues who are bureau directors and managers of the commission, but most importantly, to those of you from the Law Bureau who are in this room and in cyber world, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other further matters?
Madam
coming?
Chairman?
Vice Chairman DeFrank.
Thank you. I want to take a minute to acknowledge some recent news regarding our friend and colleague, Chairman Dutrell. In celebration of Women's History Month on March 13th, City and State News published a power list of 50 women going above and beyond in government, nonprofit, and private sectors in Pennsylvania. The list recognizes Chairman Dutrell as one of the 50 most remarkable women who are leaders in Pennsylvania. I cannot think of a more appropriate recognition for the chairman. She's a tireless public servant, always have been for as long as I've known you, and it brings me great joy to announce this today. I do want to share one of the quotes that was in the article. Every time you turn on the water, go online, or fire up that gas stove, you've got Gladys Brown Dutrell to thank. Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you. Now, we hope that every time you turn it on, it comes on, right? As we close out, we wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. As you see here on the bench, our commissioners, except for Commissioner Zerfus and I, they have followed what I told them last time, make sure you wear your green, and I forgot my green. So I want to thank Commissioner Coleman, Yanora, and Vice Chairman DeFrank for wearing their green, and when you celebrate, make sure that you are safe in your celebrations. Thank you, everyone, and with no objection, we are adjourned.